Welcome back to Tales of Knights and Magic. Subscribe if you like, and now get comfortable and enjoy this glimpse into the world of fantasy. Ronan had always known the struggle of a common life. In the low-lying valley of Dunsmore, where the chill mist rolled over rugged hills and the land bore scars from centuries of conflict, his days began before the sun had a chance to warm the dew-soaked earth. The small village was modest, a tight-knit community of farmers, blacksmiths, and storytellers who clung to old legends like lifelines. It was here that Ronan, lean and restless, learned to wield a blade at a young age, not as a knight of renown, but as a fighter in a harsh world where survival often depended on the sharp edge of steel. Every morning, Ronan would rise with the mist and help his aging mother tend their humble garden. Their cottage, its wooden walls darkened with years of smoke and its roof patched from worn slate, stood at the outskirts of the village bordered by dense, whispering woods. Though he was known for his deft hands in combat and his quiet determination, deep inside Ronan, an unspoken question thrummed: who was he, really? His father had vanished in a fabled battle many years ago, leaving little more than a single enigmatic scar on Ronan's arm, and a sense that destiny was more than chance. That fateful day came as many others did, with a biting wind and the low hum of daily toil, but it would change him forever. Ronan had been returning from a routine errand in the nearby market when a sudden cry split the air. He raced toward the sound, heart pounding, only to find a small crowd gathered at the edge of a narrow path that led into the darkening forest. There, amid the tangle of underbrush, an ancient medallion lay half buried in the mud. Its surface was strangely smooth and warm, etched with unfamiliar symbols that shimmered with a faint inner light. "Mother always said our family carries more than just scarred hands," muttered Ronan to himself as he knelt and brushed away centuries of soil. A sudden tingle sparked along his arm, a sensation both foreign and electric. The medallion pulsed once, as if acknowledging its newfound bearer, and in that moment, everything seemed to shift. The murmurs of the gathered villagers faded into a low, reverberating hum that only he could feel. Among those gathered was an elderly storyteller, old Marta, whose weathered face was lined with both sorrow and secrets. "That relic belonged to the old days," she whispered, her voice trembling with reverence. "Legends say that the Beast King, the fearsome ruler of wild creatures and untamed lands, once wore this as a sign of power. They say his blood carries magic, and his heir is destined to inherit that might." Ronan's pulse quickened, and for a moment the tales of yore, stories he had scoffed at as bedtime myths, seemed to merge with his very existence. He clutched the medallion, feeling an ancient energy swirl beneath his skin. That night, as the village slept beneath a tapestry of stars, Ronan lay awake, haunted by vivid dreams. In his slumber, he saw the image of a colossal beast, a majestic creature with eyes like burning coals and a noble yet fearsome aura. It spoke in silent, echoing tones, urging him to embrace the legacy that lay hidden within him. The next morning, uncertain and compelled, Ronan ventured into the forest. He walked the familiar path that bordered his home, but now with new eyes that sensed the pulse of ancient secrets in the rustling leaves and murmuring streams. The forest was alive in ways he had never before noticed. Shafts of sunlight glinted off dew-laden webs, and the gentle chatter of birds created a symphony that mingled with the earthy perfume of moss and pine. Every step seemed preordained, as though the land itself guided him toward undiscovered truths. Deep within the woods, Ronan encountered a traveling storyteller named Eowyn. Eowyn was not of the noble class, but a wanderer with a sharp wit and a memory as expansive as the world itself. Over a crackling campfire, Eowyn recounted fragments of an old prophecy he'd heard from passing minstrels, that a child of the Beast King would one day rise from humble beginnings to rekindle the ancient wild magic and restore balance to the lands ravaged by greed and tyranny. Ronan listened intently as Eowyn's voice wove an intricate tapestry of fate and forgotten glories. Sometimes Eowyn said, his eyes flickering with the reflected glow of the fire, "Our past is not something to be hidden away like a shameful secret. It can be the compass that guides us when we know not where to turn. This medallion you carry, it isn't just metal and engravings. It's the key to unlocking the power that flows in your blood. And blood, my friend, can be the wellspring of greatness." Ronan's gaze drifted to the medallion that dangled from his neck, it seemed to pulse in quiet affirmation of Eolin's words. He realized that this discovery was not a mere happenstance, but the beginning of a transformation that might lead him to reclaim a legacy he never imagined was his. Though doubts gnawed at him, doubts born from years of hardship and the weight of an unknown past, there was also an ember of fierce determination kindling in his heart. In the days that followed, Ronan began to notice changes. In the quiet solitude of the forest, while practicing with his blade and testing the medallion's influence, he discovered that his strikes landed with unusual precision and force. It was as if the medallion tuned his muscles and reflexes to a rhythm that was not his own, a rhythm inherited from the wild, untamed blood of a forgotten king. His senses sharpened, he could hear the rustle of a distant branch long before it was visible, and the wind itself spoke in a language that resonated with his newfound magic. The transformation did not go unnoticed in Reldar. Villagers began to whisper of the beast-born, and while some treated him with wary awe, others, especially the older folk who remembered ancient legends, saw in him the promise of renewal. His mother, though she had suffered greatly in life, looked at him with a mix of joy and sorrow, knowing that his journey would be fraught with challenges, but also carrying the hope of vindicating their tarnished family name. During a communal gathering in the village square, an elder named Sir Alric, once a retainer of a lost noble house, approached Ronan. With a voice steeped in regret and wisdom, Sir Alric recounted tales of the old Beast King, a ruler whose ferocity in battle was matched only by the compassion he held for his subjects. "Your blood," Sir Alric said quietly, "carries both fury and kindness. In times long past, a child of the Beast King was fated to renew the wild magic of our lands, to mend the fractures left by war and treachery. I see that same promise in you, lad. Embrace it and let the strength of our ancestors guide you." His words, heavy with the legacy of lost honor, bolstered Ronan's resolve. Ronan spent the following weeks wandering the borderlands, where the forest met open plains, in search of further clues about his heritage. He visited ancient stone circles and overgrown shrines that dotted the land, feeling the hum of raw magic thrumming beneath the earth. At one such site, a circle of weathered monoliths set amidst a rolling meadow, he encountered a solitary figure, a robed sage who introduced himself as Galen, keeper of lore long neglected. Galen spoke in measured tones of the ancient ways and the delicate balance between man and beast, of how the very soul of the land was interwoven with the fate of its rulers. "In our most hallowed days," Galen intoned as they sat in the dappled sunlight, "the rulership of the wild was not simply about dominion and conquest. It was about stewardship, the power to command respect through strength, yes, but tempered by wisdom and compassion. You, young one, bear a mark that calls forth not chaos, but the promise of renewal. Your quest to reclaim this legacy is as much about understanding yourself as it is about reviving an ancient order. Remember, even the mightiest beast softens with kindness and is hardened by sorrow. In your journey, seek not only to wield power, but to learn its true meaning." Galen's words struck a chord deep within Ronan. He realized that his emerging magic was not merely a tool for combat, but a profound connection to a time when nature, magic, and human spirit existed in a delicate, sacred equilibrium. The relic at his neck, once a puzzle of glowing metal, now felt like a warm pulse, a steady reminder of the heritage that coursed through his veins. Each new discovery, each whispered legend and shared tale, further connected him to his past in ways both wondrous and painful. Throughout this period of solitary exploration and quiet revelations, Ronan's inner world swelled with the promise of a destiny suddenly within reach. And yet, in the fullness of his transformation, the reality of his journey remained daunting. The road before him was fraught with uncertainties, rival clans that would not easily accept a remnant of a fallen dynasty, treacherous lands that harbored dangers both natural and supernatural, and the ever-present shadow of his father's mysterious demise, a mystery that had long tormented his soul. Back in Reldar, the ripple of his transformation inspired others to seek out their own hidden truths. In crowded marketplaces and over late-night hearths, hushed conversations spoke of the beast Heir, who had awakened from obscurity. Some villagers, emboldened by his newfound prowess, approached him for counsel or simply to listen to the enigmatic stories he recounted of his wanderings. Over time, a gentle camaraderie blossomed between Ronan and those who believed that his destiny could rekindle the ancient spark of hope in a land grown cold and indifferent. One crisp evening, as Ronan sat beside his mother on the creaking porch of their modest home, he recounted his wanderings in tentative tones. "Mother, every step I take seems to reveal fragments of who I was meant to be. The relic, it speaks to me in ways I scarcely understand. I see visions of battles long past, of noble kings and tender moments even amidst the savagery of nature. I fear I am destined for something far greater than I ever imagined." His mother's eyes glistened with both pride and sorrow. "My son," she murmured, wrapping him in a fragile embrace, "your path will be steeped in both suffering and glory. In your struggle you will find the strength to mend the broken legacy of our blood, and in so doing you will heal not only yourself but those who believe in you." Thus, as the seasons turned and the land braced for another cycle of challenge, Ronan's journey to reclaim his heritage took firm root in the hearts of those who had once dismissed him as nothing more than an unremarkable youth. The spark of his awakening had ignited a fire in the collective memory of the village, a long-forgotten promise that the old ways, though battered, were not lost forever. And so, with resolve tempered by the lessons of the past and the support of newfound allies, Ronan embraced the call of destiny. His path, though shrouded in mystery and fraught with peril, promised not just the reclamation of a noble legacy, but a journey toward understanding the very nature of power, honor, and the delicate interplay of beast and man. In the quiet moments before nightfall, beneath a sky painted with the soft glow of twilight, Ronan's silhouette merged with the ancient trees. The medallion against his chest pulsed like a gentle heartbeat, an echo of a legacy that had been dormant for far too long. As he pressed onward into the embracing darkness of the wild, his steps were steady, his resolve clear. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of wind, seemed to murmur encouragement that even in obscurity, destiny awaits, ready to be grasped by those courageous enough to follow its elusive call. And so begins the tale of Ronan, the hidden heir of the Beast King. A story not of grand singular conquests, but of the quiet, relentless struggle to understand who he truly is, and what it means to wield a legacy born of both sorrow and hope. His journey, laid upon the rugged tapestry of a world steeped in ancient magic and human emotion, promises a saga of bittersweet triumph, unfolding one measured step at a time. Ronan stood at the very edge of his village, his gaze fixed on the winding dirt road that led away from everything he'd ever known. The morning had broken with a subdued light, the mist still clinging to the low hills of Dunsmore. In his hand, he clutched the mysterious medallion that had awakened something long dormant within him, a pulse of magic that had revealed his connection to the legendary Beast King. His heart was heavy with questions and the echo of ancient whispers. Though he knew not all the secrets of his heritage, he felt that every step he took on this road would lead him closer to the truth about his bloodline and his destiny. Leaving behind the familiar thatched roofs and the murmur of villagers at their daily routines, Ronan set forth. The air was cool and redolent with the scent of dew and old earth. His boots trod carefully over the cobblestones of the village's outskirts before giving way to a meandering path through fields and farmlands. Yet as he journeyed further, the landscape began to transform. The neatly plowed fields yielded to wild, unmanaged stretches of scrub and bramble. Soon enough he found himself at the threshold of the fabled Painted Forest, a place spoken of in hushed tones by traveling bards and old folk alike. As Ronan entered the forest, the mundane world slipped away like a fading dream. Here the trees soared tall and proud, their trunks adorned with vibrant, almost surreal markings. The leaves shimmered in an array of hues, emerald, violet, and burnished gold, casting mesmerizing patterns upon the soft forest floor. The air vibrated with gentle magic, every whisper of the wind, every trickle of water seemed to carry a message from ages past. Ronan felt both dwarfed and uplifted by the ancient majesty around him. He could sense that the forest was alive with secrets. Each rustle in the underbrush and every glint of sunlight filtering through the dense canopy seemed to point toward hidden wonders, and perhaps toward clues about his heritage. It was not long before he encountered his first companion on this long journey. Sitting by a small bubbling stream that wound through a sun-dappled glen was an old man whose clothes were as colorful and patchwork as the stories that trailed behind him. His eyes twinkled like mischievous stars, and the lines on his weathered face spoke of many travels and even more secrets. The old man introduced himself simply as Eldrick, a wandering prophet whose life was dedicated to deciphering the omens whispered by nature. As Ronan approached, Eldrick's voice, soft yet resonant, broke the silence. "You carry the mark, my boy," Eldrick said, studying the medallion with a knowing smile. "I have seen such signs in my dreams. Visions of the Beast King's blood, of a line destined to restore the wild magic that once ruled these lands. They say that in every generation, one who is touched by that ancient power must leave their home to uncover the truth. Perhaps, my lad, it is you who is meant to fulfill that old promise." Ronan felt a stirring of hope and trepidation in his heart. He had always believed himself to be an ordinary youth, marked only by hardship and a lingering unknown. Now, hearing Eldrick's words, he wondered if destiny had finally chosen him as the heir to something much larger than himself. "I don't know what to make of it," he admitted hesitantly. "All I know is that I need answers. I must understand who I truly am." Eldrick nodded, his eyes glimmering with the reflection of a far-off destiny. "Then come with me if you will. I travel these lands in search of ancient lore and forgotten voices. Beyond these trees lie ruins and hidden shrines where the secrets of old are etched in stone and song. We shall find the clues you seek, and in doing so you shall begin to piece together the tapestry of your past." The two set out together along a winding path beneath the vaulted canopy of the painted forest. As they journeyed, their conversation flowed as naturally as the stream beside which they walked. Eldrick spoke in riddles and proverbs, recounting tales of ancient heroes and the long-lost era when the Beast King ruled with both ferocity and compassion. Ronan listened intently, absorbing every word even as his own mind churned with questions. The forest was alive with such stories, each rustle of leaves seemed to echo a verse from a forgotten ballad. Eventually, the path led them to a clearing where the sky burst forth in brilliant light, and the vibrancy of nature seemed almost overwhelming. It was here they encountered a second traveler, a lithe figure draped in a cloak of deep green, her eyes sharp and filled with a quiet, unwavering resolve. She introduced herself as Selena, a huntress of the elven kin, who had long roamed the wilds in search of balance in a world that had lost its way. Selena's voice was soft yet carried an unspoken authority, and she regarded Ronan's medallion with both curiosity and reverence. "That mark upon you is rare," Selena said with measured calm. "It is a remnant of a once mighty lineage, and it sings a silent song of the wilderness, a call that unites creatures of both myth and man. I have sensed its echo in my own dreams. Perhaps our paths are intertwined for a purpose greater than mere chance." Ronan, already burdened with the weight of newfound destiny, felt his heart lift at Selena's words. The idea that he was not alone on this journey, that others too felt the pull of the ancient magic, provided him with comfort and a steadying presence. With cautious optimism, he welcomed Selena into their fellowship. Now the trio set off deeper into the forest, their steps guided by the symphony of nature and the silent call of forgotten lore. Over the following days, as the trio pressed further into the wilderness, they encountered remnants of bygone civilizations. They stumbled upon a moss-covered ruin of a once grand temple, its columns fractured and its inscriptions worn by time. In one such ruin, they discovered fragments of an ancient scroll tucked away in a niche behind a crumbled statue. With the reverence befitting a relic of the past, Eldrick carefully unrolled the fragile parchment. Its faded words hinted at a prophecy concerning the lost heir of the Beast King, a child who would one day restore the wild magic to its former glory and reunite the scattered tribes of a divided realm. The discovery sparked animated discussion among the companions. Over campfires beneath star-dappled skies, they debated the meaning of the scroll's cryptic verses. Ronan, with earnest fervor, questioned whether his path might lead him to reclaim not only the legacy of his family, but also to bridge the gap between disparate peoples, noble or lowly, in a land scarred by neglect and strife. Selena, with her quiet wisdom, argued that every life was interwoven with the rhythms of nature and ancient magic. Every encounter, no matter how fleeting, was a piece of a larger mosaic. Eldrick, the eternal wanderer, smiled knowingly and prodded them to see beyond the immediate struggles of life. Their bonds deepened with each shared hardship and fleeting victory along the rugged trails. They braved sudden storms that lashed the forest with icy rain, scaled steep hills that offered panoramic views of rolling valleys, and navigated treacherous bogs where the very earth seemed intent on swallowing the unwary. With each step, Ronan discovered not only the secrets of his heritage, but also the value of trust and camaraderie, and understanding that true strength was born from the ties that bind souls together, regardless of origins or bloodlines. As the journey progressed, they began to attract the attention of other travelers. At a bustling crossroads in a small hamlet on the fringes of the painted forest, they encountered a roving band of villagers who told tales of strange lights in the sky and eerie sounds deep in the forest at night. A beggar prophet, gaunt and adorned in tattered robes, recounted visions of a lost empire and a noble bloodline destined to awaken the dormant magic of the wild. His words, though delivered in a gravelly whisper, resonated with the group. Ronan found himself both disturbed and oddly heartened by these prophecies, viewing them as subtle affirmations of his growing sense of purpose. Not all the villagers greeted them with open arms, however. In the crowded market square of a modest town, a nobleman with haughty airs challenged their presence. He spat venomous words about the lowborn meddling in affairs best left to the privileged, dismissing Ronan as nothing more than a stray remnant of a ruined dynasty. Yet, in the face of such disdain, the trio's mutual respect only grew stronger. Ronan's quiet determination, Selena's serene defiance, and Eldric's unwavering optimism painted a picture of unity that transcended class and station. The nobleman's haughty remark faded into the background as Ronan, though troubled by the arrogance of those who clung to old prejudices, resolved to prove that true worth was forged in the crucible of hardship and heart. One balmy afternoon, while resting near a tranquil stream lined with willows and wild flowers, the group encountered an aged hermit living in near seclusion among the trees. His frail appearance contrasted sharply with the piercing clarity in his eyes. He introduced himself as Miros, a keeper of old lore and a guardian of forgotten paths. In his softly spoken words, Miros shared legends of the Beast King, a ruler not merely of beasts, but of a people whose lives were intricately linked with the cycles of nature and magic. He told tales of how the Beast King had once united disparate tribes through a shared reverence for the wild, and he recounted a prophecy about a lost heir who would someday restore that forgotten unity. Miros's words were like a gentle rain on parched earth, encouraging Ronan to delve deeper into his heritage and the mysteries of his blood. With each passing day, as the trio wound its way further into the enigmatic wilderness, the tapestry of clues began to spread before them. Ruins whispered secrets from beneath layers of moss and ivy. Carvings on ancient stones depicted scenes of glory and inevitable tragedy. They entered a cavern hidden beneath a copse of ancient cedars, where luminous crystals cast ethereal light across walls covered in pictographs of wild battles and solemn oaths. Here Ronan felt the medallion at his chest pulse with an almost palpable energy. In the crystalline reflections, he saw fleeting glimpses of his father, a man whose face was worn by struggle yet marked by an undeniable nobility, and visions of the Beast King, a formidable silhouette crowned in wild majesty. The images were brief, but searing, each one imprinting itself on his mind and urging him to seek out the legacy that pulsed in every living thing around him. Evenings were marked by quiet debates and heartfelt exchanges around dwindling campfires. Selena, whose eyes often held the melancholy of silent forests, shared stories of her own people's struggles to reconcile ancient magic with modern survival. In turn, Eldric recounted bittersweet tales from his long wandering life, a tapestry of joy, loss, and the unyielding desire to unearth truth from the mists of time. Ronan, who had until then spoken little of his inner turmoil, found himself opening up to the group. He spoke of the loneliness that had gnawed at him in the wake of his father's disappearance and the deep-seated longing for connection that had driven him to greatness before his world shattered. In those shared moments of vulnerability, bonds were forged. The flickering light of the fire illuminated earnest faces, and the kinship born of shared hardships and whispered secrets wove a strong, resilient fabric that would carry them through the trials that lay ahead. In one such intimate conversation, as the campfire's glow cast dancing shadows over their weathered faces, Ronan asked quietly, "Do you ever wonder if fate is set in stone or if we can change it?" Selena, her gaze steady and compassionate, replied, "Fate is like the forest, ancient, resilient, and ever-changing. We may not rewrite every branch of the past, but we can learn to navigate its paths and sometimes even to guide them. Her words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with Ronan, igniting within him a spark of hope that perhaps the harsh chain of destiny could be tempered by the choices he made along the way. Their journey for answers extended beyond the painted forest, guided by Mirosi's directions and the subtle clues uncovered in ancient ruins. The group trekked along winding paths that veered into forgotten lands. They ventured into sunlit valleys where the air shimmered with the energy of undisturbed magic, and across barren highlands where the silence was punctuated only by the call of distant hawks. In each new landscape, hints of the past were scattered like leaves in the wind, a tarnished medallion half buried near a riverbank, inscriptions carved into mossy stone, and even the lingering echoes of old chants whispered by the wind. One day, as they crossed a vast windswept plain, the group encountered a caravan of traders. The caravan was bustling with life, a hodgepodge of merchants, travelers, and itinerant performers. Among them was a beggar prophet, a ragged figure cloaked in tattered rags, whose eyes burned with an intense, almost otherworldly fire. He beckoned Ronan forward with a wizened hand and rasped, "You bear the mark of the lost legacy. Seek ye the hidden sanctuary, where the veil between past and present is thin. Only there will you piece together the fragments of your true identity." Although his words were cryptic, the intensity in his gaze convinced Ronan that fate was weaving its intricate tapestry all around him. Every encounter on the road enriched Ronan's understanding of the fragmented world he now inhabited. With each conversation, the mysteries deepened. Elders spoke of an ancient covenant between the people and the wild magic of the land, while local bards recited verses that hinted at both the glory and the tragedy of the lost Beast King's reign. These fragments, though sometimes contradictory, began to form a picture of a heritage that was both wondrous and burdened, a legacy of unity and sacrifice, of wild power tempered by the wisdom of ages. As the days blended into nights, Ronan increasingly recognized that his journey was not only about reclaiming his heritage, but about forging a new bond among the people of the realm. The beggar prophet, the elven huntress, the grizzled mercenary, and even a few reclusive scholars they encountered along the way all shared similar desires to reconnect with a forgotten past and restore the harmony that had been lost in time. In quiet taverns and under starlit skies, they exchanged stories and debated the nature of magic and destiny, each voice adding its hue to the growing mosaic of their shared vision. By the time the group reached the edge of a long-forgotten ruin, a crumbling fortress overtaken by nature, its stone walls entwined with ivy and memory, the sense of purpose had crystallized for Ronan. Here, amid the relics of an ancient world, he found inscriptions that detailed a ritual once performed by his ancestors, a rite meant to awaken the wild magic embedded in the blood of the Beast King's heirs. The script, though faded and broken in places, spoke of sacrifice, honor, and the need to embrace both the ferocity and the mercy within. As Ronan traced his fingers along these mysterious carvings, the medallion at his neck pulsed in quiet synchrony with his heartbeat, affirming that his path was not a solitary one, but intertwined with the essence of those who had come before him. It was in this moment, standing amid the echoes of a long-lost civilization, that Ronan felt the full weight of his calling. The secrets of his heritage, scattered across the land like scattered starbeams, now beckoned him to push onward. Though the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, riddled with conflicts both external and internal, he now understood that every step he took was a step toward not just reclaiming his name, but rekindling the very spirit of a legacy once thought to be lost. With the gathering of clues complete for the moment, Ronan and his unlikely companions set up camp beneath the broad boughs of an ancient oak, its gnarled roots a testament to survival against all odds. That night, as the fire crackled softly and the gentle murmur of the wind provided a lullaby of whispered secrets, the group shared their dreams and fears. They knew that their journey was just beginning. More secrets lay hidden in forgotten scrolls and weathered stones, waiting to be unearthed by those brave enough to chase after them. For Ronan, every story he heard and every legend he pieced together brought him closer to understanding that the legacy of the Beast King was not merely a burden of violence and power. It was a tapestry of hope, community, and redemption. Thus, as the stars marched silently across the midnight sky, Ronan's resolve grew ever stronger. In the soft interplay of whispered prophecies and the quiet strength of his newfound friendships, he felt the stirring of destiny, a promise that though the past was shattered, the future could be rebuilt by the courage of those who dared to seek the truth. In that moment, Ronan, the once hidden heir of a fierce and forgotten dynasty, embraced his path, a path filled with peril, discovery, and the transformative power of forging bonds that could withstand the test of time. And so, with the first light of dawn preparing to break over the painted forest, Ronan and his companions gathered their belongings, ready to press onward. Each step away from the ruins was a commitment to the journey ahead, a journey defined not by a single confrontation, but by the quiet, persistent search for meaning, unity, and the renewal of a legacy that had long been dormant. The gathering of secrets was complete for now, and the horizon, painted with the soft glow of promise, beckoned them to continue toward the next chapter of their epic quest, where every memory, every bond forged in struggle, would serve as the foundation for a future reborn from the ashes of the past. Ronan, Narthiel, and Isolde pressed onward from the ancient ruin, where the secrets of their heritage had begun to unfold. The weary trio left behind the crumbling remnants of a lost empire, venturing into lands whispered about in old legends as the Feral Lands, a wild, untamed domain where nature's raw magic still ruled, and every shadow might hide peril or forgotten wonder. The path into the Feral Lands was treacherous. Dense thickets and towering, ancient trees soon obscured the narrow road, and the ground became uneven with tangled roots and rocky outcrops. The air grew heavy with moisture, and the scent of earth so rich it seemed almost alive. As they advanced, the light dimmed under a living canopy, and every footstep echoed like an invocation to forgotten gods. "Keep your guard up," Ronan said, his voice low but steady as they navigated a narrow trail between twisted oaks. His hand rested lightly on the pommel of his sword, the medallion at his neck pulsing softly in tune with his heartbeat. "I feel something strange. It's as if the forest itself is watching us." Narthiel grunted in agreement, his eyes scanning the gloom. "The wilds here are not kind to intruders. Every rustle and creak could be a predator waiting for the chance to strike." His tone was rough, yet there was a note of respect for the ancient power of the land. Isolde, trailing slightly behind, added quietly, "I've heard tales of these Feral Lands, a place where the boundary between nature and magic thins to the point of merging. The old texts speak of spirits that guard the forgotten ways. We must be cautious." Their journey soon led them to a broad clearing, where the forest opened to reveal a vast expanse of rolling, verdant hills dotted with wildflowers and ancient stone markers. The clearing was bathed in a gentle, otherworldly light that made the air shimmer. In the center of this natural amphitheater stood a massive gnarled tree, its trunk thick and scarred by time, its branches stretching upward like the fingers of a giant. Beneath its sprawling canopy, the trio paused, each silently absorbing the power and serenity of the place. Ronan knelt to examine one of the stone markers, running his fingers over the intricate carvings worn smooth by centuries. These symbols, they speak of a covenant between man and nature, of balance that must be preserved, he murmured, more to himself than to his companions. At that moment, the quiet was broken by the soft sound of footsteps approaching from the edge of the clearing. Out from behind a cluster of wild irises emerged a lithe figure, clad in garments that blended seamlessly with the forest. An elven woman, with eyes as green as the deepest moss and hair the color of autumn leaves, stepped forward. She regarded them cautiously at first. "Who wanders in the sacred groves of the Feral Lands?" she inquired, her voice musical yet firm. Ronan rose to his feet, meeting her gaze steadily. "I am Ronan, heir of the Beast King, though I have only recently discovered that truth. I travel with Narthiel and Isolde, seeking knowledge of my past and the power that lies within me." The elven huntress regarded him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. "I am Lyrisiel," she replied slowly. "The forest remembers all who enter its bounds, and I have sensed the disturbance of ancient magic upon you. You claim a noble, if lost, heritage. Come with me." After a brief exchange of cautious words, Ronan agreed to follow Lyrisiel deeper into the Feral Lands. The group, now 5 in number, traced an overgrown path to an area where the trees thinned to reveal an ancient grove. Here the terrain turned rugged, The earth underfoot was uneven and scattered with shards of pottery and broken relics. It was clear this was a place long forgotten by civilization, where nature had reclaimed what once belonged to men. As they trekked, conversation fell into a natural rhythm. Lyrasil spoke of the grove's significance in elven lore, telling tales of how the very spirit of the land had been nurtured here by generations of woodland dwellers. This grove, she explained softly as they rested near a small spring, is said to be a conduit for the earth's primordial magic. In its waters one might glimpse the echoes of past covenants, of promises made between the first peoples and the land itself. Narthiel shifted his weight, his voice gruff but sincere. I've seen many places ruined and reborn. Sometimes it's not the magic of the land that saves you, but the strength of your own heart. Don't let ancient legends blind you to the truth that lies in you, Ronan. Ronan listened intently, feeling the weight of their words settle in his chest. I understand, he said quietly. My journey has taught me that power is as much a burden as it is a gift. I can feel it growing within me, sometimes surging uncontrollably in moments of anger or sorrow, but fear what it might do if I can't learn to guide it properly. Isolde interjected from beside him. We all bear burdens, Ronan. Even I, shunned by my own kin, have had to learn the limits of my power. It is not only by strength of arm that we prevail, but by learning the delicate balance between our desires and our responsibilities. Her tone was soft yet carried the weight of experience. As dusk fell, the ancient grove transformed. The light took on a softer, almost ethereal quality as twilight spread its quiet glow. The group set up camp near the spring, gathering wood for a fire. Over a modest meal, conversation turned to memories of past hardships and dreams for the future. Ronan shared fragments of stories his mother had told him, tales of heroic deeds and a lineage lost to time, of a father who was once a noble warrior, and whose legacy, though shrouded in mystery, called to him even now. Later that night, as the flames of their small fire flickered and cast dancing shadows upon the ancient stones, the conversation grew more introspective. Lyrasil sat quietly, her eyes reflecting the steady pulse of the fire. When she finally spoke, in times such as these, when the world seems torn apart by strife and forgotten power, it is the bonds we forge that give us strength. The legacy of the Beast King is not merely found in the blood that runs through your veins, Ronan, it is also in the relationships you nurture, in the wisdom you gain from those who walk beside you. Ronan regarded her with newfound respect. Then I must learn not only to wield this power, he said, his voice trembling slightly with determination, but to understand what it means to be a leader, to be someone worth following. Lyrasil nodded. That is the true trial. The magic you possess, the legacy that you claim, can only be honored when tempered with compassion and humility. The wilds of this land will test you every day, not just in battle but in the quiet moments when you must choose between power and responsibility. Over the next few days, the companions ventured further into the heart of the Feral Lands. Their journey was punctuated by challenges that forced them to confront both natural and mystical obstacles. They found themselves ambushed by a pack of spectral hounds, beings of pure, sorrowful energy said to be the guardians of the forest's ancient secrets. In a harrowing skirmish beneath a gnarled canopy of interwoven branches, Ronan fought alongside Narthiel and Lyrasil. The hound's eyes glowed with a ghostly luminescence as they howled mournfully, and for a moment the confrontation seemed almost tragic, a dance of life and death performed by creatures bound to the spirit of a lost age. Stand firm, Ronan shouted as he parried a spectral bite, his blade glinting with the nascent magic that now suffused every strike. Narthiel roared, swinging his axe with raw, visceral strength, while Lyrasil's incantations filled the air with shimmering barriers that slowed the onslaught. Amid the chaos, Isolde arrived with swift precision, her spells crackling with dangerous beauty as she unleashed a volley of arcane energy that sent two hounds reeling back into the dark recesses of the forest. When the battle subsided, the clearing was bathed in an eerie silence, panting and wounded but undefeated. The group gathered in the center. Ronan's chest heaved as he wiped blood from his brow. We must be stronger together, he said, his voice resolute despite the tremor of exhaustion. Every battle teaches us something about the dangers that lurk in the wild and about the strength we hold within. Isolde's eyes, soft with empathy, met his. Our journey is a testament not only to the weight of heritage but to the power of unity. Each scar we bear is proof that we have endured, and every wound is a lesson in how to rise again. In the days that followed, the companions continued their journey through landscapes both breathtaking and brutal. They traversed over rocky ridges where winds howled like ancient laments, and through misty marshes where the ground squelched beneath their weary feet. Their conversations deepened as well as their trust in each other grew. One evening, as they took shelter in the hollowed-out remains of a stone watchtower, Narthiel, whose voice was often curt and hardened, surprised them by speaking softly about his own past. "I was once a fierce warrior in the armies of a forgotten dominion," he confessed while tending to a burn on his forearm. "But the bloodshed left me hollow, and I walked the path of darkness until I found redemption in the fires of defeat. I see in you all something I once lost, a hope that can mend even the most fractured soul." His words, raw and unguarded, forged a bond of understanding among the group, their shared struggles illuminating the path forward. The camaraderie among them was constantly renewed by moments of light-hearted banter and camaraderie, despite the gravity of their quest. One afternoon, while they rested beside a clear, rippling stream, Lyrisiel and Isolde engaged in a playful debate about which ancient myth best described the capricious nature of the wild magic that coursed through these lands. Their laughter rang through the forest, a brief but potent reminder that even in the face of daunting challenges, there could be joy and levity. "Perhaps the trick is to listen to the land," Lyrisiel said with a smile, her eyes twinkling. "Let the whisper of the wind be your guide, not just the roar of battle." Isolde chuckled, her tone teasing yet sincere. "And sometimes a sharp blade and a quicker wit are just as valuable as any counsel from nature." Their exchange, warm and genuine, resonated with Ronan, who understood that these moments of human connection were as vital as any physical confrontation. As they journeyed deeper, the trio began to uncover more tangible clues about the lost legacy of the Beast King. In the ruins of an ancient watchtower, they discovered a series of carved stone tablets covered in moss and worn by the passage of time. The inscriptions described rites of passage for the heirs of a long-lost dynasty, extolling virtues of bravery, wisdom, and sacrifice. Ronan's eyes shone as he carefully traced the fading symbols with his fingertips. These texts, they speak of trials much like the ones we face now. They tell of the importance of facing one's own darkness to emerge stronger, he murmured, more to himself than to the others. Narthiel stepped forward, his voice measured. "Your father once walked this path of hardship, Ronan. His story might be etched in these tablets. They may hold the keys to not only harnessing our power, but in healing a heart burdened by regret." The thought hung in the air as the companions pored over the inscriptions, piecing together fragmented prophecies and ancient oaths that bound the past to the present. One evening, after a long day trekking through a valley shrouded in an almost mystical twilight, the group gathered around a modest fire. The flames leaped and danced on the cold ground, casting flickering silhouettes that intermingled with their own weary faces. Ronan looked up at the star-strewn sky, his expression resolute yet tender with the weight of his journey. "I'm beginning to understand," he said softly, addressing both his companions and the vast silent heavens above. "This isn't just about reclaiming a throne or unlocking a hidden power. It's about mending what was broken in our hearts and in our land. Every challenge we overcome here is a step toward a legacy that honors both our pain and our hope." Isolde placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We all carry scars, Ronan, but in sharing them we lighten the burden. Our legacy is built on these moments, our triumphs and our losses. With every new friend we meet and every secret we uncover, we create a bridge between the past and a future that is ours to shape." Lyrisiel's eyes glistened with quiet pride as she added, "You are not alone on this path, Ronan. Every tree in this forest, every whisper of wind is a reminder that nature endures by embracing both light and shadow. Let your heart be like the forest, resilient, ever-changing, and full of life." In that moment of shared vulnerability under the vast celestial dome, the bonds among them deepened further. They knew that the trials of the Pharaoh lands were not merely physical challenges, but tests of their spirit, friendship, and commitment to a greater purpose. The path was long, and every step was steeped in both wonder and adversity. But with each day, Ronan's resolve hardened into something luminous. With their camp established near ancient stone circles in the heart of a misty valley, the group spent several days exploring the region, guided by the stone inscriptions and the subtle signs of nature. They deciphered ancient symbols etched onto weathered stones that pointed toward hidden sanctuaries and forgotten paths. In quiet moments, they exchanged stories of their own journeys, from the bitter memories of lost loved ones to the flickers of hope that had kept them moving forward. One afternoon, as a gentle rain began to fall, washing the stones and renewing the forest's verdant hues, Ronan found himself alone on a narrow ridge overlooking a vast green expanse. The sound of rain mixed with the soft murmur of the wind, and for a long moment, he allowed himself to simply be, to reflect on the myriad pieces of his past that had begun to reassemble in his mind. He recalled his mother's wistful tales of honor and kinship, the echoing words of Sir Alric, and the quiet reassurance in the voice of the beggar prophet he'd met in the market. The medallion at his neck hummed softly, its gentle rhythm a promise that his bloodline, his heritage, was real, and that he was destined to be more than a mere fighter. Returning to camp, he recounted this quiet epiphany to his companions. "I felt the weight of our ancestors out there," he said, his tone carrying both awe and a dawning understanding. "It's as if every stone, every drop of rain is part of a story, one that calls for us to rebuild not just a legacy of power, but a legacy of hope and unity." Narthiel's gruff laughter broke the silence. "You've always had a softer soul than most of us, Ronan. But it's that softness, your capacity for reflection, that will see you rise above the bitterness of our past." His voice, though rough, held warmth as he clapped Ronan on the back. Isolde's eyes sparkled with both mischief and sincerity. "Just don't get too lost in poetic reverie, hero. We're still here facing down beasts and brigands every day. But yes, the old ways hold many lessons, and so do the scars if you're willing to learn from them." Their banter was a welcome reprieve from the gravity of their quest, and it wove into the tapestry of their journey, a reminder that even in the harshest of wildernesses, friendships could form and grow, infusing the path with laughter and light. As days turned to weeks, the clues they uncovered grew bolder. In a ruined amphitheater deep within the valley, they discovered a mosaic depicting a majestic beast, likely the long-forgotten Beast King in moments of both wrath and benevolence. The mosaic's faded colors and fractured details spoke of a glory lost to time, yet it also lit a spark of determination in Ronan. "This is our past," he said one evening, his voice filled with quiet resolve as he studied the ancient art. "It reminds me that our history isn't just written in blood and sorrow, but also in the strength of our convictions and the dreams we dare to pursue." With each step, their journey in the Faroe lands grew richer, not only in adventure but in the deep, abiding connections they forged through shared hardships. Their dialogue, the exchange of personal dreams, regrets, and hopes, became as integral to their quest as the physical trials they endured. In every conversation, from whispered secrets under the starry canopy to hearty debates around the campfire, the contours of their individual characters sharpened and intertwined. One crisp evening, as they gathered in a modest clearing surrounded by ancient stone pillars covered in creeping ivy, Narthiel recounted a memory from his own tumultuous past. "I remember when I was but a young warrior," he began, his voice rough and laden with reminiscence. "I fought not for honor, but for survival. My choices were harsh and my soul scarred. But in those darkest times I learned that true strength isn't in raw power, it's in having the courage to change. I see that in you, Ronan." His words echoed with authenticity, drawing the others into a moment of shared understanding. Isolde added softly, "Each scar we bear tells a story of defeat, of loss, and of the power to rise again. We are not defined solely by our battles, but by our ability to heal and to learn from the hardships we endure. That is the essence of the legacy we seek to restore." Ronan nodded slowly, feeling the truth of their words resonate within him. "You both give me strength," he said earnestly. "I can no longer see my past as a series of failures. It is the foundation upon which I can build something greater, a future where the old ways and our newfound truth come together in harmony." His words, bare and sincere, carried the weight of a young man who had begun to understand that his destiny was as much about personal growth as it was about reclaiming a lost legacy. In the days that followed, the trio continued their exploration of the Faroe lands, each discovery, a weathered inscription on a mossy stone, a crumbling mural depicting heroism and sacrifice, further illuminating the path to their shared destiny. Their conversations turned toward plans for the future, each tentative idea a spark of hope in the uncertain twilight of a ruined world. They discussed gathering more allies, reaching out to dispersed villages, and learning more about the ancient rites that might one day restore what had been lost. Even as each night fell with its own blend of eerie silence and mystical wonder, the bonds among them grew stronger, their voices intermingling with the rustle of leaves, the murmur of distant waters, and the relentless pulse of the ancient magic that coursed through the Pharaoh lands. By the time the group reached the outskirts of a particularly ancient ruin, a crumbling fortress overtaken by nature, where the very stones seemed imbued with memories of glory and grief, Ronan could feel that his journey was entering a phase of transformation. In the midst of these ruins, bathed in the soft glow of dusk, he discovered remnants of a long-forgotten ceremony, its symbols echoing the same ancient oath that had once bound the Beast King's kin. With reverence, he studied the faded carvings alongside his companions, realizing that these fragments of history were not merely relics of the past, but living lessons meant to guide them toward rebuilding a future that honored both strength and compassion. At that moment, as the last slivers of daylight danced upon the broken stones, Ronan turned to his companions and said, "These ruins, they tell me that our journey is far from over. There is so much more to learn, so many secrets yet to uncover. My father, and the Beast King before him, believed that our legacy was not about ruling with cruelty, but about protecting the people and the wild magic of our lands. I must become worthy of that trust. I must learn not just to wield this power, but to understand its cost and honor its gift." Lyrisil, who had been quietly observing, responded gently, "The wilderness rewards those who listen, Ronan. The call of the old ways is not one of brute force, but of understanding and balance. You have come far, yet every step you take here unveils more of the truth. Let the voices of the past guide you. They speak not only of what has been lost, but of what can be rebuilt if we choose to carry forth the legacy of compassion." Narthiel's deep voice added, "Aye, lad, the scars of my past still tell tales, but they also guide me. You must learn that sometimes the hardest battles are fought within, in the quiet moments when you stand alone and your heart is laid bare. Our strength is in our unity, and in the willingness to face our own darkness." Their words mingled with the breeze, carrying a promise of redemption through the darkened alleys of time. In that ancient ruin, as twilight deepened and a cool, resonant silence fell upon them, the trio set forth a pledge, a covenant not sealed by grand battles alone, but by the everyday courage to step into the unknown, to embrace the lessons whispered by the earth, and to bind themselves to a destiny forged from both light and dark. Ronan, Narthiel, and Isolde approached the ruined city of Valgarn, a desolate place whose once majestic stone towers and grand palaces were now little more than shattered silhouettes against a gray sky. The journey from the wild heart of the Pharaoh lands had been long and arduous, the path littered with echoes of lost heroes, and the quiet laments of a people whose pride had been eroded by time. Now, as they advanced through the broken archways of Valgarn's outer gate, the air was heavy with sorrow and the residue of past splendor. Ronan's gaze swept across the broken courtyard before him. "This is the heart of the old empire," he murmured, his voice steadier than he felt. He had expected ruins, but Valgarn carried an almost tangible melancholy, a sense of forgotten purpose entwined with the wild magic that still pulsed beneath its stones. Narthiel grunted as he stepped over a fallen column, his sharp eyes scanning the debris for hidden dangers. Isolde trailed behind them, her fingers brushing lightly against the cold stone walls as if hoping to absorb the stories etched into each weathered surface. Inside the grand hall of what once was a palace, the trio found what they might call a mausoleum of history. High ceilings and shattered stained glass created a kaleidoscope of weak light that danced across the floor, lending an eerie beauty to the somber decay. Ronan paused before an ancient tapestry, its once vibrant threads faded to a muted palette, depicting a scene of the Beast King in all his regal ferocity, a moment when the wild was tamed by strength, and strength was tempered with compassion. He traced a calloused finger over the imagery, the fabric rough beneath his touch. "It's as if the very soul of our ancestors is here, lingering in the remnants," Isolde said softly, almost in awe. "I can almost hear the echoes of their oaths, promises made in honor and sealed with sacrifice. Narthiel's voice, low and measured, cut through the quiet. Old scars rarely fade completely. They remind us of what was lost and what might be reclaimed, if only we have the courage to face them. His words carried the weight of his own battles both on the field and within himself. Their exploration carried them through a labyrinth of ruined corridors and shadowed courtyards where the remnants of noble families once gathered in celebration and in war. Ronan led them slowly, each step deliberate as he absorbed the enormity of the legacy he was destined to reclaim. In one chamber beneath a fractured dome he discovered a set of stone tablets, their inscriptions partially worn by time but still legible enough to convey ancient laws and codes of honor. The tablets told of rituals, promises, and the importance of balancing might with mercy, tenets that had defined the reign of the Beast King. Ronan's heart hammered with both reverence and a rising sense of responsibility. Our heritage isn't just about power, it's about duty, he said quietly, almost to himself. The Beast King ruled with a code, with honor, and if I am truly his heir, then it is up to me to restore that balance, no matter the cost. As if summoned by his words, a soft rustling came from within the shadows of a side chamber. The three turned, and emerging from the gloom was a solitary figure. He was an elderly man, cloaked in garments that bore the unmistakable marks of nobility, albeit faded with age. His eyes were pale but shone with an inner light that spoke of deep wisdom and a lifetime of hardship. "Welcome," he said slowly, his tone neither harsh nor overly friendly, but measured and deliberate. "I have been waiting for one such as you, the one who carries the blood of the Beast King." Ronan's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" he demanded. Though not without a trace of awe, the man inclined his head. "I am Lord Orin, once a trusted advisor in the court of the ancient kingdom of Algarn. I have wandered these ruins for years, preserving what little memory remains of a noble era. It seems destiny has brought you to this place to learn the burdens and blessings of your heritage." For a long moment, silence fell between them, as Ronan measured the gravity in Lord Orin's gaze. "I seek answers," Ronan said. "I need to know what it means to be the heir of a legacy that has been so thoroughly forgotten." Lord Orin nodded slowly. "The legacy of the Beast King is not one that can be reclaimed by mere strength alone, young heir. It demands understanding, sacrifice, and the humility to build a future that honors both the past and the hope of tomorrow. You must learn that power taken without wisdom is as fleeting as it is dangerous." Over the following days, Lord Orin became their guide through the labyrinthine corridors of Valgarn's ruined palace. In the quiet of the ancient halls, he recounted long-forgotten histories, tales of the Beast King's mighty campaigns, and of the intricate alliances between noble bloodlines and the wild magic of the land. As he spoke, his words wove images of a past where strength was tempered by compassion, and where even the most ferocious warrior was bound by a code of honor. One afternoon, while seated in what remained of a grand library, Lord Orin spread out a collection of brittle scrolls across a dusty table. "These are the words of our forefathers," he explained. "They tell of rites and rituals meant to awaken the inner magic of the Beast King's heirs. I believe that within these texts lies the key to understanding not just the power in your blood but the wisdom to wield it rightly." Ronan listened as the aged noble recited passages from a faded manuscript, his voice imbued with a deep sorrow. "Honor," Lord Orin intoned, "is not granted by birth alone, it is earned through trials of the heart and spirit. The burden of our past can either corrupt us or transform us into vessels of true power. The choice is always yours. For as long as you live, fate is yours to shape." Ronan's eyes shone with a mix of resolve and uncertainty. "I feel that struggle every day," he confessed later, as they walked through the echoing hallways. "The power within me is wild. There are moments when it flares uncontrollably. Moments I fear I might lose control and become everything my father's downfall warned against." Lord Orin paused, regarding him with a solemn expression. "You fear the beast within, do you not?" he asked gently. "I once feared it too when I was young and full of anger. The path to mastery is forged in fire and regret. But know this, your power does not define you. The choices you make in its wake do." In the quiet hours of the evening, as twilight seeped through shattered windows and painted the ancient walls with soft, muted hues, Ronan and Lord Orin often engaged in long, reflective conversations about the nature of honor. the lessons of failure, and the possibility of redemption. The dialogue was not one-sided, for Ronan, with a candid openness that surprised even himself, shared his fears, dreams, and the haunting uncertainty that had dogged him since his awakening. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm even worthy of this gift," he admitted one night, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time I use this power, a part of me trembles with the fear of what I might become if I lose control. What if I become the very monster I hope to defeat?" Lord Oren's reply was measured and kind. "The mark of true honor lies not in perfection, but in perseverance. Every scar, every moment of doubt is a testament to your resilience. You are not defined by a single moment or a single act, but by the journey you embark on, even if that journey is fraught with missteps. It is in rising after every fall that the true heir of the Beast King is born." As the days passed and their exploration of Valgarn deepened, the trio grew ever more aware of the bittersweet nature of their legacy. Beneath crumbling arches and overgrown courtyards, they discovered remnants of traditions once held sacred by noble families, festive banners stained with the colors of old golden goblets encrusted with the dust of forgotten feasts, and murals that depicted legendary battles with ferocity and grace. The weight of this historical tapestry pressed upon Ronan, yet it also inspired him. Every relic and faded inscription was a reminder that honor had once flourished in these lands, and perhaps with hard-fought determination, it could rise again. In one evocative scene, while they rested near a dilapidated fountain in a once bustling courtyard, Isolde, whose quiet counsel had been a steadying presence, brought out a small worn diary discovered in the ruins. "These are the personal writings of a warrior of old," she said, her voice soft with reverence. "He spoke of love, loss, and the unending struggle to balance his brutal nature with a longing for redemption. Perhaps his words can light the way for us." Ronan carefully read aloud from the diary, his voice heavy with emotion. "In every drop of blood there is a story of sacrifice. In every scar a lesson of endurance. We must learn that greatness is not in the conquering of foes, but in the courage to endure and the wisdom to love despite the weight of our past." Nights in the ruins were particularly potent. Beneath a vast canopy of stars, the group would sit together around modest fires, allowing the cool night air to wash over their tired bodies while sharing tales of personal loss and hard-won victories. It was during one such evening, with the firelight flickering against ancient stone, that the conversation turned deeply personal. "I remember my mother's soft lullabies as we worked in the fields," Ronan said quietly, his gaze lost in the fire. "Back home, hope was a scarce commodity. Losing my father left a void so deep that I thought I'd be swallowed by it forever. But now, I see that every tear shed, every scar borne, is a thread in the tapestry of who I am meant to become." Narthiel, usually reserved, responded with a gruff nod. "I've carried battles on my soul, scars that even time won't erase. But it is our ability to forge ahead, to embrace even our failures, that makes us more than just remnants of a shattered past," he said, Isolde added, her eyes reflective. "We all have our ghosts. The key is to share them, to turn our personal tragedies into a beacon of hope that guides others. Your journey, Ronan, may be haunted, but it is also filled with promise." Their voices, steady and intermingled with the gentle murmur of the night, laid bare their collective resolve. In that moment, the ruins of Valgarn were not merely silent remnants of a long-lost glory. They became the crucible in which new bonds of loyalty and shared purpose were forged. Ronan found strength in the camaraderie that emerged spontaneously. Each story, each confession, a brick in the foundation of what could be a reborn legacy. As the group departed the ancient ruin the next morning, they carried with them not just physical artifacts, but a renewed sense of purpose. The heavy air seemed to lighten with each step, as if the faded echoes of lost honor were guiding them onward. Their destination was uncertain. A promise of further discoveries awaited somewhere in the uncharted wilderness that lay beyond the crumbling city. Yet the knowledge they had unearthed in Valgarn, the bonds they had forged among ruins and memories, would serve as both a shield and a sword in the trials yet to come. Ronan's mind, still resonant with the solemn words of Lord Oren and the heartfelt verses of ancient diaries, began to form a blueprint of the legacy he wished to create. A future where the Beast King's teachings were reborn, not in the tyranny of old but in the gentle balance of power and compassion. "I must carry this light," he murmured to himself, as he surveyed the horizon from the ramparts of a fallen tower. "It is not enough to reclaim a name or heritage. I must transform it into something that heals as much as it inspires." In quiet moments between travel and skirmishes, Ronan and his companions engaged in spirited discussions about the nature of power. They debated how best to balance the raw primal force of their inherited magic with the wisdom gleaned from centuries of experience. Each conversation was a step toward understanding, each shared reminiscence a piece of a larger puzzle that was slowly taking shape in Ronan's mind. Together they resolved to seek out further relics and hidden sanctuaries in the hope of rediscovering the forgotten rituals of their ancestors, a quest that promised not only to unlock new powers, but also to provide a moral compass in a world where might often threaten to overpower right. The journey through the fallen empire was long, and with each passing day the bonds among the travelers deepened further. They huddled together during harsh nights when cold winds carried the scent of distant rain, shared their meager meals in silence and laughter alike, and slowly transformed from isolated wanderers into a family united by the quest for redemption. Ronan, who had once walked the lonely path of an outcast, now found solace in the shared burdens and triumphs of his companions. And as they advanced, the secrets of the past continued to unfurl before them, a mosaic of songs, symbols, and ancient wisdom that whispered of a time when the world was whole and honor was the true currency of life. One morning, as a pale fog rose from the fields and the first light of day painted the world in gentle pastels, the group reached a secluded glen where the ruins of an old temple lay half swallowed by the earth. Among broken columns and shattered statues, they discovered a circular stone altar encircled by intricate carvings that depicted the rites of the Beast King's court. Ronan's heart pounded as he carefully examined the artful symbols, feeling the medallion at his chest pulse in harmonious rhythm. Here lay evidence not only of the ancient civilization's once mighty power, but also of a philosophy that honored both the wildness of the beast and the tempered grace of its ruler. Sitting on the ancient stones, Ronan invited his companions to share what this discovery meant to each of them. "I see in these images a union between strength and vulnerability," he said, his voice carrying the weight of newfound understanding. "It tells a story of warriors who fought not just for power, but for a legacy of compassion, a dream of a better world even in the midst of chaos." Isolde, always thoughtful, added, "Perhaps our true heritage is more than the might of a king. It is the wisdom to know that our strength to be meaningful must also offer healing. We are called to be more than conquerors. We are meant to be stewards of what was lost, even when the path to recovery is shrouded in tragedy." Narthiel's eyes, reflecting a hard-won clarity, fixed on Ronan. "You have the heart of a leader, boy," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "The journey you've embarked upon isn't about the glory of battle, but about learning to tame the wild power inside you and using it to bring hope where there is despair. I've seen men fall to their own inner darkness. The key is to let that darkness become a lesson, not a chain." Lyriciel, who had accompanied them from the Painted Forest, chimed in with quiet conviction. "We must all learn that our past does not define us. It is what we do with the legacy we are given that shapes our future." The art of our ancestors was not just in their strength, but in their capacity to love, to support one another, and to create beauty in a world that was harsh and unforgiving. Their voices, mingling with the soft sigh of the wind through ancient ruins, carried with them the shared realization that each step was not only a march toward reclaiming a lost heritage, but also an act of self-creation. Ronan listened, absorbing every word, and felt within him a stirring of hope, a determination to rise above the shattered remnants of the past and build something that honored the sacrifices of those who had come before him. That night, as they camped near the altar, the tranquil glow of the moon bathed the ruins in silver light. Ronan lay awake beneath the star-strewn heavens, the medallion warm against his chest. In the solemn quiet of the ancient glen, the murmurs of his companions slowly blended with the whispers of the wind, crafting a lullaby of remembrance and promise. In his heart, he vowed silently to seek out every shred of lost lore, to honor the beauty and tragedy of his lineage, and to lead his people toward a future where old wounds could be healed by new hope. And so the group departed the glen at dawn, their footsteps echoing along the time-worn paths, their spirits intertwined with the legacy of a fallen empire. The revelations of that silent sacred temple had deepened their bond and clarified their purpose. For Ronan, every uncovered inscription and every whispered legend was a beacon, guiding him on the arduous quest to reclaim the honor of his bloodline. The road ahead was long and perilous, but the unity they had forged in the crucible of their shared discoveries became their greatest strength. As they journeyed onward into the heart of Valgarn's ruins, their conversations grew richer and more intimate. They debated what it truly meant to be a protector of the ancient ways. In moments of rest by meandering streams and beneath the towering remnants of ancient arches, they challenged one another's ideas and fears. The legacy we seek, Ronan would say, is not just in the reassembly of broken records, but in the way we choose to live every day, honorably despite the weight of sorrow and the lure of darkness. His companions responded in turn, weaving their diverse experiences into a collective narrative of resilience and hope. Throughout Arc 3, Ronan's internal conflicts were painted as vividly as the external challenges they faced. Every encounter in the ruins, whether with spectral guardians guarding relics of the past, or confrontations with remnants of bitter feuds, became an opportunity for him to grow. The lost lore of his ancestors urged him to temper his raw, untamed power with wisdom and compassion. These encounters were often marked by heated exchanges, as when a ghostly apparition of a fallen warrior confronted him with harsh truths. Strength without mercy is nothing, Heir. You must learn to wield both your blade and your heart in equal measure. Ronan's reply was measured, even defiant. I refuse to be defined by the sins of the past. I will create my own legacy, one that honors my ancestors, but that also embraces the promise of tomorrow. Thus, as the days melted into one another in the haunted corridors of the fallen empire, the trials of the feral lands became not a series of isolated incidents, but a flowing chronicle of personal growth and shared struggle. Amid the ruins of Valgarn, every whispered secret and every voice raised in sorrow or in determination brought Ronan closer to understanding that his journey was about more than reclaiming a name. It was about finding the courage to rebuild a fractured world, one tender act of compassion at a time. By the time the group prepared to leave the heart of the ancient ruin, the threads of their shared destiny had woven themselves into an unbreakable tapestry. Ronan, once an uncertain youth burdened by the mystery of his blood, now carried a renewed sense of purpose. The medallion, still glowing with a subtle, comforting warmth, reminded him that the power of legacy lay in the bonds forged between souls, and that even the most shattered past could, with time and sacrifice, be remade into a future radiant with hope. And so, with heavy hearts and determined eyes, Ronan and his companions moved onward from the ruins of Valgarn. Their journey into the heart of the fallen empire, rife with trials that tested both body and spirit, had yielded secrets of ancient rites and the painful truth of what had been lost. Yet it had also sparked a fire within each of them, a fire born not of sheer ferocity, but of an enduring belief that from the ashes of broken legacies, a new order of honor and unity could rise. With every step along the forgotten paths, their voices merged in a steady cadence of remembrance and resolve, propelling them toward the next stage of their epic quest, a stage where the true meaning of power, sacrifice, and redemption awaited to be revealed in the forging of a legacy that would shine for generations to come. Ronan stood at the edge of a crumbling overlook, the first light of day breaking over the horizon and revealing a tapestry of faded glory and rugged wilderness. Before him, the remnants of Valgarn, sprawled like a wounded giant. Towers that once touched the heavens now lay in ruin, and the battered stone of ancient palaces softened beneath the touch of new growth. Around him, his trusted companions gathered quietly. Narthiel, the once fiery demon warrior, whose past was etched on every scar. Isolde, the exiled sorceress with eyes that burned with secret knowledge, and others who had joined him along his arduous journey. The air carried the tang of both bitter regret and subtle promise. Ronan's hands, still warm from the pulse of his medallion, tightened around the hilt of his sword. He recalled every step that had led him here, from the hidden legacy of his village to the painful lessons in Valgarn's ruined corridors. Today he was no longer the timid youth burdened with mystery, but a man who had learned to balance the untamed fury within him with the gentle urging of hope. I never imagined this day would come, Ronan said quietly, his voice barely audible in the sacred hush of the morning. He looked out over the valley, the rising sun gilding the jagged edges of broken stone in soft amber light. It feels like all the despair and dreams of those who came before me have led to this single moment. Isolde stepped forward, her dark hair falling over her thoughtful eyes. And yet, we are only at the beginning, she replied, her tone gentle but resolute. The legacy of the Beast King is not fixed in the ruins. It lives in our actions, in the choices we make now. We have uncovered much in Valgarn, the promises and the failures, but it is up to us to mend the fractures and set our future on a new course. Narthiel's deep voice rumbled as he joined the conversation. Aye, he said, power without honor is like a river without banks, wild and destructive. I've seen many souls lost to their own inner darkness. You, Ronan, must be the one to channel our collective hope, to show that even in ruin there is redemption. For a long moment, silence reigned as Ronan absorbed his companion's words. The early morning light revealed more of the ancient city's scars, a fractured dome here, a toppled column there. And yet, beneath it all, faint traces of life persisted. Wildflowers timidly pushed through the cracks, ivy slowly reclaiming stone, and in the distance the sound of water flowing in a stream that wound its way like a silver thread through history. Every detail whispered of battles fought long ago and of dreams that had not been entirely lost. We must begin by gathering the remnants of old hope, Ronan said, his voice growing steadier. We have seen what our forefathers once built, not solely to hold power, but to foster unity and protect the people. I intend to bring that spirit back to the scattered hearts of our land. No tyrant or usurper shall claim our future, for we will rebuild it on the strength of our shared promise. At that moment, a clamor arose from down the road. A small group of villagers, driven by rumors and weariness, hurried toward the citadel's ruined gate, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and cautious hope, fixed upon Ronan. Among them, an older man with weathered skin and kind eyes stepped forward. Are you the one they call the Beast King's heir? He asked, voice wavering with both reverence and desperation. Ronan paused and met the man's gaze. I am Ronan, he said softly, and I promise you I will do all that I can to restore the honor and strength of our people. The man bowed his head, murmuring, then lead us, for we are tired of living in fear of those who would strip us of all that is left. His words, simple and heartfelt, resonated with the gathered crowd. Soon more villagers joined them. A potter, a weaver, a band of tired farmers, and they began to form a small but determined assembly. Ronan looked at his companions, his eyes reflecting a determination born of many trials. Let us march to the old settlement, he proclaimed. There among the ruins that still speak of past prosperity, we will gather the willing and rebuild a community based on honor and unity. And so, with Ronan at their head, the assembled villagers and wanderers made their way from the desolate outpost toward a long-abandoned settlement at the foot of a hill. As they marched, conversation and lively debate intertwined with the clinking of makeshift armor and the quiet hum of resolute hearts. Isolde walked beside Ronan, discussing plans to restore the ancient rites. I believe we can revive the rituals that will awaken the latent magic of the people, she said, not by forcing power upon them, but by nurturing it, by reminding them that even in the smallest acts of kindness and labor, there is magic waiting to be kindled. Narthiel at Ronan's other side added gravely, we must teach them that true strength lies not in the fear of the unknown, but in embracing the struggles that shape us. Our traditions, as much as they honor the past, must also guide us to a future where every person has a purpose, where every wound can heal with time and care. As they walked along the overgrown paths that led to the settlement, Ronan took time to speak with each of the villagers. He listened to a young mother who spoke of losing her husband to marauders. He comforted an elderly blacksmith whose hands trembled at the thought of a future without craft and creation. Each conversation, laden with personal hardship and quiet hope, fueled his desire to create a better world, one where every life mattered, a world where the legacy of the Beast King could once again shine as a beacon of resilience. That evening, as the motley group settled in the remains of a once bustling square in the abandoned settlement, a sense of tentative peace began to grow. While the buildings were in ruins and nature had slowly reclaimed many of the structures, there was an undeniable warmth as fires were kindled and shared meals were prepared. Around a central fire, Ronan addressed the gathered crowd. We stand here on the threshold of a new dawn, he said, his voice carrying over the hushed crowd. I know you have suffered much, and the memories of our past are bitter, but every ending is also a beginning. Tonight I ask you to join me in building something that honors our heritage, a community bound by the promise of unity, the strength of our conviction, and the unwavering hope that even in the darkest of times, a light will always guide us home. A murmur of assent rippled through the crowd, and one by one voices rose in agreement. The villagers, weary but resolute, began to share stories of their own, a tapestry woven of sorrow, humor, and dreams. An old weaver recounted the bright festivals of yesteryear, while a young man spoke of the unyielding spirit of those who labored under harsh suns for the promise of a better tomorrow. In that shared moment, it was clear that the journey Ronan led was not merely his alone. It was a collective pursuit of a future where the legacy of the Beast King would be reborn through the strength of every soul. Deep into the night, as the fire crackled and the stars overhead watched silently, Isolde and Narthiel sat with Ronan, their faces bathed in the flickering light. Do you truly believe we can mend what has been broken? Isolde asked, her tone a mixture of cautious optimism and lingering doubt. Ronan's eyes, reflecting the spark of determination, met hers. I do, he replied steadily, not because I have all the answers, but because I believe that each of us carries within us a piece of the old glory, an ember that can ignite a flame of hope if nurtured together. This journey, every hardship we've faced, has been preparing us for this moment. We have the chance to redefine what it means to be noble, to be powerful. It isn't just about might or magic, it's about honor, compassion, and the willingness to build a future that reflects the best of our past. Narthiel, ever pragmatic yet not unfeeling, nodded. Aye, lad. The road ahead is long, and many will fall along the way, but it is in each fall that we learn to stand again. Every bruise and every scar teaches us what is truly worth fighting for. Their words drifted into the night, mingling with the murmurs of the rejuvenated settlement. As dawn approached, the horizon blushed with a gentle promise, and the people gathered their strength for the work ahead. Ronan, standing before the crowd with a clarity born of conviction, declared, "Today we begin anew. Let us rebuild not just these ruined walls, but the spirit of our people. Let's forge a legacy where every man, every woman, and every child can live with dignity and hope." In response, the crowd erupted in a quiet, determined cheer. That day marked the beginning of a transformation. Over the following weeks, under Ronan's guidance and with Isolde and Narthiel by his side, the people labored to restore the settlement. Old structures were mended, and new ones were built, often with simple tools and equal parts sweat and hope. Side by side, the villagers and their newfound allies shared in the work, their conversations rich with plans for a future where tradition and progress were not at odds, but interwoven. Under the warm embrace of midsummer's sun, a modest festival was held to celebrate the rebirth of their community. Lanterns were hung from the repaired walls, and melodies carried by the wind echoed through the rebuilt market squares. Ronan wandered among the people, listening to tales of hardship and laughter alike. In quiet corners, he spoke with an elderly woman who recalled the golden days of old Valgarn, and she smiled tearfully as she said, "You remind me that even when all seems lost, a single light can guide us home." Such moments reaffirmed his purpose, fortifying his resolve to continue along the path of redemption and unity. Yet, amidst the rebuilding and the shared dreams, Ronan's mind constantly dwelled on the deeper questions of his heritage. In whispers exchanged during quiet walks along ancient stone bridges or under the murmuring leaves of the reawakened forest, he questioned what true honor would demand of him in the years to come. One chilly evening, as a gentle rain began to fall and soaked into the newly repaved streets, he sought out his closest friend, the sharp-witted mercenary Marcus, who had joined the community after long years of wandering. "Marcus," Ronan said, his tone reflective, "I sometimes feel that my destiny is burdened with the weight of the past, like a chain that I must forever bear. How do you face your own demons and still hold on to hope?" Marcus, leaning against a refurbished stone wall, considered the question carefully before replying. "I've seen plenty of men come and go, each with a load too heavy for them to bear. But what sets us apart is the choice to keep moving forward, even when every step feels like it might be your last. Our past is a shadow, sure, but it's also a guide. It reminds us where we've been and, more importantly, where we must go. His words struck Ronan deeply, affirming that while the legacy of the Beast King was steeped in both glory and grief, it was ultimately the strength with which one faced the future that truly defined a man. As the seasons turned and the community flourished under the steady leadership of Ronan, quiet moments of introspection gave way to a broader sense of purpose. The rebuilt settlement became a beacon for neighboring hamlets and wandering souls who had long given up on the possibility of renewal. In a stirring assembly held beneath a sky filled with blazing twilight, Ronan addressed the gathered throng. "We stand not only as survivors of a broken past, but as living proof that hope endures. Our journey continues not for glory or conquest, but for the simple enduring truth that every soul has the power to change the world. Let us be the light that guides others out of darkness, the hands that rebuild when all seems lost." The crowd, a mosaic of farmers, craftsmen, nobility in exile, and even the humble beggar who had once spoken prophecies on a cold night, erupted in earnest applause. In that moment, as the voices of many merged into a single uplifting chorus, Ronan felt a profound sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy that came from knowing his personal quest had become a shared dream. The scars of the past were not forgotten, but transformed into the building blocks of a new future. In the months that followed, the community grew stronger. Festivals celebrated not only the rebirth of their settlement but the enduring bonds forged in adversity. Ronan and his companions continued their journey, venturing out to assist neighboring communities in their own struggles. They shared their knowledge, aided in rebuilding efforts, and spread the message that true power lay in compassion, resilience, and unity. One crisp autumn evening, as golden leaves danced in the breeze and the air carried the promise of change, Ronan rode out to a distant village that had been devastated by marauders. The villagers, weary and wounded, looked upon him with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Standing before a tattered banner of a once mighty clan, Ronan addressed them with quiet authority. "I know the pain you carry. I have borne it too, but together we can forge a future that honors our lost past without being enslaved by it. We are not defined by the darkness that has come before us, but by the light we choose to kindle in our hearts." His words, simple yet profound, stirred a murmur of assent among the gathered crowd, and promises of aid and fellowship soon followed. Conversations with local leaders, shared over modest feasts and long evenings by the fire, revealed that the legacy of the Beast King was not confined to ancient ruins, but lived on in the everyday struggles and triumphs of the people. Every discussion, every exchange of stories, reinforced the idea that the journey for redemption was ongoing, a continuous effort to build a legacy that was defined not by grand battles, but by the quiet, steadfast acts of kindness, perseverance, and unity. In a final moving scene before the next stage of his journey, Ronan found himself alone on a hill overlooking the renewed settlement. The town spread out below him, a patchwork of rebuilt homes, thriving marketplaces, and healed scars of the past. As the wind whispered through the fields and the twilight cast long shadows over the land, Ronan held his medallion close. In the solitary silence, he reflected on every trial he had endured, every friendship that had been forged in the crucible of hardship, and every sacrifice made along the way. Turning his gaze upward, he spoke softly to the heavens. "I am not who I once was, nor am I defined solely by the legacy of the Beast King. I am a man who has learned that every drop of sorrow, every moment of hope is a thread in the fabric of our future. I will carry this light forward, not as a burden, but as a promise to all who long for a better tomorrow." At that moment, the quiet affirmation of the world, through the rustle of leaves, the gentle flow of a nearby stream, and the enduring glow of the rising sun, seemed to answer him. He knew that his quest was far from over. The path ahead was long, winding through landscapes both beautiful and brutal, but he was no longer a solitary wanderer lost in the shadows of his lineage. With the love and support of his companions, and the unyielding spirit of the people he now led, he would continue to walk the road toward a future forged by honor, unity, and the ever-resilient light of hope. Thus, as the dawn broke over the healed ruins and the laughter of children and the determined voices of adults filled the air, Ronan, the heir of the Beast King, looked to the horizon. His journey had transformed him from a lost outcast into a leader, a beacon for those who believed that even the most broken legacies could be mended by the gentle, relentless force of compassion and unity. And with every step he took into this new day, he carried with him the belief that destiny is not written in stone, but forged in the hearts of those brave enough to shape it.